Here's what nobody expected. On the same day that Ashlee Janae's family was saying their final goodbye, lowering her into the ground, surrounded by the people who actually loved her, Joe McCann broke his silence. Not in person, not at the funeral, not with a phone call to her grieving parents. He did it on X, formerly Twitter, and the internet tore it apart sentence by sentence. But before we even get to what he said, and what Ashlee's best friend had to say about it, because she had a lot to say, let's pause for just a second and sit with the weight of what actually happened last week. Ashlee Janae Robinson, 31 years old, lifestyle influencer, someone's daughter, someone's best friend, was laid to rest on May 5th at Second Baptist Church in Paulsboro, New Jersey. The family kept it intimate, private. They did not want cameras. They did not want the media circus that this case has unfortunately become. They just wanted to bury their baby girl in peace. And they did, without the man who claims he was the love of her life sitting anywhere in those pews. Because Joe McCann was barred from the funeral by Ashlee's own family. The man who put that ring on her finger while she was still alive was not allowed within 100 yards of the church where they said goodbye to her. That should tell you everything you need to know about where this family stands. Now let's talk about what Joe did instead. Because the timing alone is enough to make your stomach turn. While Ashlee's mother Yolanda was sitting in a church pew in New Jersey, probably clutching a photograph of her daughter with shaking hands, Joe McCann was on his phone, crafting a public statement. He posted it to X, the same platform he had been quietly active on throughout this entire ordeal. And here's the thing about that statement. It was long. It was wordy. It used all the right emotional language. Words like devastation, emptiness, incomprehensible tragedy. He called her his best friend, his confidant. He mentioned her parents by name, which some people took as a gesture of respect, and others saw immediately for what it was, a calculated move to appear empathetic in the court of public opinion. He even wrote about how much Ashlee wanted to become a mother, how she wanted to raise a family together. And the internet collectively paused, looked at each other, and said, where was all of this for the last month? Because let's be very clear about something. Ashlee Robinson died on April 9th. Her body was returned to her family after weeks of waiting, weeks of her parents flying to Washington, D.C. trying to get answers from an embassy that couldn't do much more than monitor the situation, weeks of a Zanzibar police department that had already rushed to call this a suicide without doing what any reasonable investigation would require. And through all of that, through every press conference, every tearful interview her parents gave, every viral post demanding answers, Joe McCann said absolutely nothing. Not one word publicly. Not $1 donated to the GoFundMe that Ashlee's friends and supporters created to help her family cover burial costs and potential travel to Tanzania. Not one private investigator hired to clear his name. Just silence. Passive, deliberate, lawyer-advised silence. And then the moment she's in the ground, the moment that press cycle is about to peak and fade, he releases a statement. Savannah Britt saw right through it. And she said exactly what she saw. For those who are just now tuning into this case, Savannah Britt is a public relations professional and one of Ashlee's closest friends. She was actually the first person in Ashlee's inner circle to go public. She was the one who rang the alarm. She went on X weeks ago and wrote a post that stopped the internet cold, calling out Joe by name, stating plainly that Ashlee would never take her own life, and demanding answers before the world moved on. That post went viral. It is one of the main reasons this story got the mainstream media coverage it deserved. Without Savannah, there's a real chance that this case gets buried, no pun intended, under the Zanzibar police's initial suicide ruling and Joe McCann's silence. So when Savannah responded to Joe's statement, people listened. And what she said was not polite. She called it exactly what it was. Word salad. A carefully constructed performance written by someone who is managing a PR crisis, not grieving a loss. She pointed out something that many people had already started to notice, that Joe had found the time to update his profile picture during all of this. He had adjusted his online image. He changed his aesthetic. He managed his digital footprint. But he couldn't pick up a phone and call Ashlee's parents. He couldn't fly to New Jersey and sit in that church, even if it was just to look her family in the eyes and say he was sorry she was gone. He couldn't write a statement that mentioned the fight, the argument, the physical altercation that was so serious that hotel staff physically separated them and moved him to a completely different villa, a 10-minute walk away from where Ashlee was staying. And that brings us to the piece of information that Savannah let slip that has the internet buzzing right now. Hotel staff didn't just hear something. Hotel staff saw the fight. Read that again. They saw it. This was not a muffled argument through a wall. This was not a complaint filed by a neighboring guest. The people who work at that Zuri Zanzibar resort, the same resort whose management issued a polished corporate statement about how deeply saddened they were, those staff members witnessed what happened between Ashlee Janae and Joe McCann that night. And what they saw was serious enough, physical enough, that management intervened and made the decision to move Joe to a separate accommodation entirely. Now think about the official timeline. Ashlee calls her mother on April 8th and tells her that she and Joe had a fight and that they've been separated into different rooms. That's the last time her mother speaks to her daughter alive. The next morning, April 9th, Ashlee is found unconscious in the villa. According to Joe's own account to Tanzanian authorities, he went to check on her with a security guard and found her unresponsive. Local police initially ruled the death a suicide by hanging. That ruling came fast, almost suspiciously fast, and it came before a proper investigation was conducted. Think about what that means from an investigative standpoint. If a police department rules something a suicide before they've dusted for prints, before they've reviewed all the CCTV footage, before they've conducted thorough witness interviews, they've essentially closed the door on justice before they've even walked through it. The Zanzibar police chief, when asked whether Joe McCann would be questioned, reportedly said something to the effect of, "For what? She harmed herself." And in that moment, the opportunity to preserve evidence began to vanish. Hotel rooms get cleaned. Evidence gets moved. CCTV footage gets handed over to the very authorities who may not be inclined to use it the way we'd hope. And here is the uncomfortable reality of the situation that Ashlee supporters keep circling back to. Tanzania's economy is heavily dependent on tourism. Some estimates put it at 70% or higher. A high-profile murder at a luxury resort is the kind of story that kills bookings. The Zuri Zanzibar cannot afford to be known as the place where an American influencer was killed. The Zanzibar police force cannot afford an international scandal. And we want to be careful with how we say this because no charges have been filed and the investigation is technically ongoing, if Joe McCann had the financial resources and the local connections to make things easier on himself in a country where government accountability is limited, where most citizens earn somewhere between $80 and $150 a month, where fewer than 40% of people report having faith in their own government, then the odds of a clean, uncompromised investigation were never as high as the official statements would have you believe. What is stunning about Savannah Britt's response is that she's not just grieving. She's not just venting. She's communicating very specific, strategic information. When she says that Joe's statement is more evidence for the courts, that tells you that people in Ashlee's circle are consulting with people who understand the legal landscape. They are building something. Whether that turns into formal charges somewhere down the line, whether international legal channels can be opened, whether the autopsy results, which have not been publicly released in full, tell a different story than what we've been given. None of that is certain yet. But Savannah Britt is not firing blindly. She's a PR professional. She knows exactly what she's doing by keeping this in the public eye every single day. And that is critically important. Because here is the hard truth about cases like this. The media attention is not just noise. It is pressure. Real, measurable pressure on the institutions and individuals who have an interest in making this go away quietly. The moment the story falls off the trending page, the moment people stop commenting and sharing and watching, the moment the news cycle moves to the next thing, that is when the Zanzibar police close their file. That is when the CCTV footage gets conveniently corrupted or destroyed. That is when Joe McCann returns to his normal life as the founder of Asymmetric Technologies, managing millions in crypto investments, completely untouched by what happened to the woman he proposed to in front of a safari sunset. 11 hours. Let that number sit with you for a moment. When Ashlee was rushed to the hospital, Joe McCann waited 11 hours before contacting her parents. 11 hours. And when he finally did reach out, what did he tell them? He told Ashlee's father that Ashlee had done something to herself, and that she was at the hospital. He told them she was stable. She was not stable. She was dying. And then the family didn't hear about her death from Joe. They heard it from the hotel. The same hotel whose staff watched Ashlee and Joe fight, and had to physically separate them the night before. There is something about that sequence of events that defies every instinct of someone who is genuinely devastated and innocent. If you watched the person you loved more than anything in the world be taken away in an ambulance, and you truly had nothing to hide, the first thing you would do is call her parents. Not after a few hours, not after 11. Immediately, you would want them there. You would want them to know. You would be desperate to not be the only one carrying that. And yet Joe McCann sat in a different villa, a 10-minute walk from where Ashlee lay dying, and said nothing for 11 hours. His statement doesn't explain that. Not even close. The language he used is beautiful on the surface. But beauty and truth are not the same thing, and the people who loved Ashlee Robinson understand that better than anyone right now. Savannah Britt noted that Joe allowed suicide rumors to circulate, that he did nothing to push back against the narrative that Ashlee might have taken her own life. And she's right that this is calculated, because if the world accepts the suicide narrative, Joe has no questions left to answer. He's a grieving fiancé whose partner tragically took her own life on what should have been the happiest trip of their lives. The optics become sympathetic instead of suspicious. And all those people who have been pointing at inconsistencies, the 11 hours of silence, the physical fight, the complete financial absence from Ashlee's funeral costs, the missing statements, the polished PR pivots, they all start to look like conspiracy theorists rather than people asking legitimate questions. But here's what Savannah and the people who knew Ashlee keep coming back to. Ashlee called her mother on April 8th. She was upset about the fight, yes, but she called. She was in contact. She was alive and communicating with the people she loved. There was no indication in that phone call. No farewell. No despondency. No words that would make a mother hang up the phone and think something was terribly wrong in that final way. Ashlee's parents have said this over and over again. She was happy. She had just gotten engaged. She was celebrating her birthday. She had over 100,000 people who followed her life online, and she was building something. People who are building something don't suddenly decide to stop. The anonymous warnings that surfaced after Ashlee's death are another detail that keeps being brought back into the conversation. Screenshots showing that Ashlee had received messages from unidentified accounts telling her to be careful in her relationship, urging her to watch herself. We don't know who sent those messages. We don't know if Ashlee took them seriously. But we know that someone, somewhere, felt concerned enough about what they were seeing to reach out to a stranger and say, "Be careful." And we know that Ashlee is gone. What happens next in this case is genuinely uncertain. Joe McCann has not been charged with anything. The Zanzibar authorities have completed their questioning of him and returned his passport. The investigation is technically listed as ongoing, but the silence from that government has grown louder with each passing week. Ashlee's family is pushing for access to the surveillance footage from the Zuri, Zanzibar hotel. They want to see what those cameras captured. They want the full autopsy results made public and independently reviewed. And they want someone, anyone in a position of official power, to treat their daughter's death with the seriousness it deserves. The most chilling part of all of this is not any single detail. It's the pattern. It's the way every institution that should be motivated to find the truth is simultaneously motivated to avoid it. The hotel, the local police, the tourism economy, and a man who, by all accounts, is very good at managing money, managing narratives, and managing distance from uncomfortable questions. Ashlee Janae Robinson deserved to come home from that trip. She deserved to plan a wedding. She deserved to become the mother she so desperately wanted to be. She deserved a fiancé who would have picked up the phone the second that ambulance drove away. And she deserves, right now, for every single one of us to keep saying her name, loudly, consistently, and without letting up, until someone with the authority to do something actually does it. Because the moment the world goes quiet is the moment the people with something to hide breathe easy. And Savannah Britt has made it very clear that she is not going quiet. Ashlee's family is not going quiet. And if this case has taught us anything, it's that sometimes the loudest voice in the room is the only thing standing between the truth and the people who are desperate to bury it. Keep watching. Keep sharing. Keep saying her name.